this is just a few quick clips of me when I was first getting down some longer wheelies, going pretty slow, and I was trying a few different little combos. In that last clip you can still see I'm bapping the throttle a little bit, but I start to get smoother in this one, and I'm even trying to do some one-leggers. But yeah, let's get right into the R3 beginner bike video. Okay, so this is the R3 stunt bike. Basically a walk around of the stunt bike and why I chose the R3. It's kind of a beginner's video. So if you have an R3 or you're looking for a cheap bike to get started, you can't really go wrong with the R3. I've never really stunted another full-size bike like a 600 F4i or a 636, but I've definitely wheelied enough mopeds in my life. I started off on a Yamaha Raz, which is a very weak moped, so it only goes like 30 max. It's got chain drive, it's just one gear. I could wheelie that thing miles, like literally like 10 miles. So it's not really about the bike, it's more about the stunter, although some bikes definitely work better than others. Like for example, the R3, I only can get it up in first and second, and I can't get it up in second sitting down, I guess because the weight is more in the middle. But when I'm standing up, I can use my feet right here or on the pegs as leverage and kind of yank up on the bars, and I can easily get it up in second gear, that is, because I have the stock gearing on. So that's just what the R3 comes with, brand new. It works fine, like I said, first and second gear, no problem. I'm also gonna make this video for like beginners, so I'm gonna explain a lot of things that maybe experienced stunters don't really need. It's the tire pressure. Even 10 psi tire pressure on this is like I've gone that low, and that feels really good for straight line stuff. For circles, they say you want your tire pressure to be high, but actually when I was first learning circles, I stuck with the low pressure, and then as you go higher, I guess it helps the bike dip in more. I definitely can see that, because when you're going slow with high tire pressure, it dips. It's hard to keep the bike straight, so it wants to dip left and right. It doesn't want to stay like this. It wants to go like this. It'll be either leaning one way or the other. And so with high tire pressure, like I'm still getting used to this. This is like 30 psi. The recommended is 36 from the factory. I have to lower it because I only weigh 145 pounds, and like I just like low tire pressure. It's easier for straight line stuff, and that's mostly what I do. As you can see, you can kind of see where the wear pattern is, or the clean part of the tire. When I'm at 10 psi, it goes all the way out to the edge, so it's smushing the tire all the way. It's dangerous to take corners or even just ride on the road with 10 psi, but I did it for a while. He said you can roll the bead off the tire. So in other words, high tire pressure for the road, and I'm still getting used to this. It's kind of hard. I made a video, I was just wheeling, and like I'll show that right now. See how much I was swaying all over the road. Like if I just lean to the left a little bit to look around the bike, I'm already going off the road. So, and the road's dipped like that, or crowned, or whatever you call it. So when the road is like this, not perfectly flat, you're gonna have a hard time wheeling. And one thing people don't talk about is how important it is to lean side to side, or side to side balance. So people always talk about wheeling, you know, like this is the bike going wheelies. They're like, oh, I'm trying to get it to balance point, but what about this way balance? That's more important. I'm always thinking about side to side balance, because that's how you don't steer off the road or come down crooked or whatever. And yeah, if you don't know, the faster you go, the easier it is to keep it straight. The bike wants to go straight because of the gyroscopic effect. But yeah, so with the high tire pressure, I'm having a hard time going side to side, and I'm pretty experienced with low tire pressure. So when you're learning wheelies, don't get frustrated, but focus on your side to side balance. Because yeah, the slower you go, the harder it is to balance side to side, but at the same time, that's safer when you're learning to go slow. So it's gonna take you longer to learn, but you're gonna be a lot better at steering the bike if you learn at a slow pace. So I would say it's almost harder to learn side-to-side control while in a wheelie than it is to learn the balance point, because the balance point you can kind of play with it. This thing has a really big balance point, so like I could be wheeling anywhere from here to like there, you know what I mean, 12 o'clock. It just feels like there's a lot of play in the wheelie. Like I can decide where I want to be. If I want to slow down, I can bring it back that much more. And if I want to go faster, I just bring it forward again and I can whip it back again, you know? So I guess you would say play this way. So you could do a wheelie 1 foot off the ground, 2 feet off the ground, 3 feet off the ground, 6 feet off the ground, almost going back to where I did scrape one time. So you can scrape these. I'm still learning that. It was really scary. That gets to my next point. When I scraped this, I guess you need to scrub the rear brake when you scrape. So you're wheeling and you lean the bike back and you scrub the rear brake. And these shocks are really, really soft. Like they're some of the softest shocks on, I guess, any bike. They're just really soft. So I bottom out the shocks really easy. The way you don't bottom out your shock and slam them down all hard is you gas it. So anytime you're coming down, you gas to sort of, you know, lighten the load, because this thing has heavy engine braking in first gear. A lot like the Harleys. If you look up Harley videos, these things are, I feel like it feels like what a Harley looks like, because Harleys are known to have heavy engine braking, and this R3 has heavy engine braking. It feels like that in first gear, and I've looked up reviews and people have said that compared to other 300 cc bikes, this one has heavy-ish engine braking. So that's a good thing, because when you're wheeling and you're learning, you're not just relying on the brake. You can also rely on just letting off the throttle and you'll come back down in case you get in an accident or whatever. But throttle control is super important, because like on a 2-stroke moped, which is what I learned wheeling on, you kind of bap it and it coasts. There's no engine braking. So you're kind of just like, yip, yip, yip. And you're kind of gliding the brake just barely to keep you in the balance point. Like I'm talking like just feathering it, because you're coasting really. It's a lot like when you pull in the clutch and do a coaster on these. But with the engine braking, you don't really want to bap it. You don't want to fucking bop, bop, bop. You want to hold it just there. And then if you start falling back down, you whoop. Look at my hand. It's barely moving. You see that? When I'm doing a first gear wheelie, I never let off the gas all the way. I keep it just a little bit gassed, and I use the brake to control to control me not going over. I don't whap, 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 whap. That's how I started learning, and it really throws you off, because it makes the bike want to do this. Even to this day, if I bap, 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 it's going to make me go all over the place on the road, which I already showed you the video of that. So this bracket right here, if you see that logo, it's from a company in Thailand called Dark Knight Street. I guess it's like a Batman thing. I don't really know, but it's in Thailand. You can find them on Facebook. Just look up Dark Knight Street. They make this bracket. It's the only one I know for the R3. And I just ordered these off eBay. These are from like a Triumph, I think is the bike, but I got these 2 brakes. All you need to make a handbrake is the lever piece, which is this piece right here. It comes with this long lever, which I also got from Dark Knight Street, but I think you can get anyone you want, like from eBay or whatever. This thing's adjustable, so when you turn this knob right here, it moves this in or out. And also this is a lot of free play. This feels like nothing until it hits the brake, and then you feel a solid brake. You just feel the brake, and that's what you're doing. You're feathering it from not really braking at all to just barely hitting it. And if you're going really far back, like you're trying to do a drop back where you're like up past the balance point, then that's the only time you really grab hard, because you don't really want to grab hard. I had a friend that was learning to wheelie, and he was wheeling like this, like bah, 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 like he was all over the place, and he ate total shit going like 60. He bounced around, fucked up his shoulder. He didn't wear a helmet. I don't know why, but he did it. He looked like a fool in front of everyone. So if you're wheeling like this, you don't have it down yet. Don't try to go fast. You want to be able to hold it. And the smoother you are when you're learning is better. Then you can start playing with it. Oh, I'm going to go farther back. Oh, I'm going to go. But try to get used to that. Just keeping it right there. Using, of course, the brake. And that brings me on to my next thing that helps you. If you don't want to hold it in one spot, right? Because you're so jumpy on the throttle and you can't have the control to just hold it right there and not let it off when you feel scared. Instead, hold it there and use the brake. Let the engine rev, use the brake, tap it. This thing right here is an idle adjuster. I got this from the SICK shop. So you twist it, you screw it. It's really easy to install, but you have to take all this off. But it's basically just a screw. So as I screw this in, it makes my idle higher, which is good because then your idle's always gonna stay. I leave it at about 4,000. You can play with it, find your good spot, but that idle adjuster isn't necessary, but it helps. It's just nice to have. It's only like 20 bucks. Get one. If you don't have one, you can still learn to wheelie, but like I said, you're gonna have to hold the throttle. Don't let it off. But with this, you can let off the throttle as much as you want because it's always gonna go back to 4,000 RPMs, which is what it would be if you held your hand here. So it's like having it stuck. The idle adjuster cable. Here we have some grip tape for where my foot is in the back. When I stick my foot in here, this thing helps a lot for circles because I'm really tall. And when I do a seat stander, I'm like way up here, like my waist level. If I'm standing here and I'm at 12 o'clock, my waist is right around the handlebars. So I want my bars as far this way as possible. So the bars I got are these cheap Chinese eBay bars. I'm planning on getting better ones, but you see how they're mounted forward of this fork? So I like my bars as far forward because I'm tall. When I'm standing, it doesn't feel like I'm hunched over like those bike life guys with their dirt bikes. They look all hunched over when they do seat standers. I don't like that. I like to stand as straight up as possible. And I kind of push my hip into the tank. I don't have a stunt tank on here. It'll cost $350 to get custom welded stunt tank. This is just like a plastic cover that goes over, but underneath is a metal tank. When this tank is full, like full to the top of gas, it spills out. Yeah, I don't like filling this up all the way because when I'm doing slow wheelies where you're really vertical, almost like walking speed, all the gas that you just put in spills out. So I only fill it to that inner level. And I looked in the manual, they said only to fill it to that anyway. But I'm sure they don't say to wheelie it either. So don't fill it up all the way if you're gonna be at 12 o'clock or your gas is gonna spill. Gloves are super important. So these gloves, thin gloves, these are like the thinnest Fox gloves I could find. Now you're gonna say, what's the point of wearing gloves if they're that thin? Because they're not for protection, they're for grip. Because I had the leather ones with the knuckles that were carbon fiber. You want soft gloves, no carbon knuckles, just so your sweat doesn't make you slide off or make you have to over grip the bars. So the second I got these, I felt the difference right away. So gloves are a huge factor. Definitely if you're learning, get gloves. I recommend these or any thin gloves that are grippy. So when you're doing a sit down wheelie, you see how your head's gonna be in this zone. You can't really see much in there. And I didn't really want to take off these panels just so I could see better. It didn't make that much of a difference anyway. So what I would suggest is just look around the bike. So what I do is I'm here and I look around and I try to compensate by leaning a little. I'm not really that good at sit downs, honestly, but I know my head goes like this. Basically what I do is I pull it up in a sit down in first and then I'll immediately jump on the pegs. This is kind of unnecessary. You don't necessarily need this unless you want to bring your body lower. It's just another place to stand, really. I use it when I'm going slow. I don't really use it. This feels better to me because I can just jump right to this. This I kind of got to think about and put my foot in. You got more leverage when you push your foot into this than up here. You feel high up. This you feel lower. Your hands drop lower to your bars. Instead of being way over like this, you're a little bit more level. The other thing to think about with the R3, I don't know if all bikes do this, but this is the coolant reservoir. It pretty much leaks out completely. Spills out from somewhere. I don't know if it comes out from there or what, but I filled it up and the second I did a wheelie, it was over. But my coolant's full in the radiator cap. I checked that. Now, these bars are from Dark Knight Street too. They're pretty cheap. I recommend them. I don't know anyone else that makes R3 parts for that cheap. It's coming from Thailand. You could get them painted any color. Didn't practice circles recently on this, but I was just getting them in a couple days. So if you're wanting to do circle lot wheelies with these, they're totally doable. It took me only like a couple days to do like pretty big circles. I was just starting to get them tighter. Somebody kicked me out of that lot and told me I can't do it anymore. All this is from Dark Knight Street. This sub cage, and then this thing bolts right up to where the fender bolted, and I hope that's strong enough because it's just bolts. But yeah, I just wanted that to save my tail. I don't even get close to this, so if you're thinking, oh, I don't want to break my tail while I'm wheeling, you won't. Trust me, if you're learning and you're not trying to scrape, you're not gonna get here. This is like so much farther back than I'm comfortable with. You don't need this piece if you don't want to scrape or you don't think you're gonna crash onto your tail. If you're just trying to do wheelies, I like it. I got it because I wanted to do some titanium scrapes. I had to have someone weld this on. I think it's called Homegrown Industries. It's like extra thick titanium. And then this bar, the gearing, I would suggest not going with high gearing, or I mean a bigger sprocket. It's not really necessary if you're learning. The first gear feels really jumpy, like super jumpy. Like I could, yeah, it's enough. So what I did with the exhaust is I just took off the exhaust pipe that connects to this catalytic converter, and I kind of like rigged this piece that was some cover for the exhaust, and I just kind of made it block that, and it sounds kind of cool, the Harley-ish, but it also revs high, like a high revving sport bike. So it sounds cool on both ends of the spectrum, low revving and high revving. I fill my oil up a little bit higher than the sight glass window. Right now, my bike's tipped over. That's like level. So I go a little higher than, you know, the line, but not a lot higher. Mirror block off plates, cheap eBay ones. And I cut this because your handlebars won't fit turning unless this is cut. So I just cut that with like a little wood saw. So I forgot to mention, when you bleed your brakes, these calipers, I bleed them with the caliper off and I rotate it around to get all the air bubbles out as I'm bleeding it. Some people might like a little squishier brake. I like that instant. The other thing I wanted to mention is, since I learned on a moped, I do pointer finger on the brake and middle finger on the clutch. So I just have that set up to the best of my ability. I had to adjust this clutch with a little bit of play and get stuck slightly closer back because I'll pinch both fingers. You see how that's pinching my finger as I do that? So one thing I was gonna do was either break this off or bend this up, or get a longer clutch lever to where it's like out here so it doesn't, you know, pinch as I pull, because you want those to be independent of each other. But anyway, for street stuff, I grab with 3 fingers and just do that. I'm not really like this unless I'm trying to do, you know, circles or slow stuff, coasters. I'm still learning those. I suck at them though. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If you want an R3, they definitely can be stunt bike. Are they powerful enough? Probably not, but they're good enough. And my theory is, if you learn on a weaker bike, you'll be that much better at wheeling a stronger bike. Plus they're cheaper, less moving parts, steel frames, which steel is more bendy rather than breaky, whereas aluminum frames want to snap. Steel wants to bend, so that's a pro. If you were interested in the R3 stunt bike, which people were, then definitely go for it. It's totally doable. And then later on you could sell it and get a full-size stunt bike, or get a full-size stunt bike. But this worked for me. I'd love to try a 600 to feel the difference. I can't really give any feedback because I've never actually wheelied one. Hope you enjoyed this video. Sorry it was so long. I had to get into the details because a lot of people leave out details.